The year was 1943, and it was dusk on Sunday, April 18th, in the county of Worcestershire, England. 4 teenage boys from the town of Hagley were doing something illegal, trespassing onto the private property of one Lord Cobham, looking for birds' eggs. Poaching and trespassing were not unforgivable crimes, especially for schoolboys, but either way, the boys knew that they could tell no one about their visit into Hagley Wood. One of them, Bob Farmer, climbed up a particularly large and old witch hazel, also known as a wych elm, searching for birds' nests. But when Bob looked into the hollow trunk of the tree, he discovered a sight straight out of a horror story. There, staring back at him, was a human skull. Tonight, on Dreary Midnight, we ask, who put Bella in the wych elm?
Let's get into it.
Intro music. Spooky intro music.
All right. Also, I'm Lisa. Pronouns are she, they.
I'm Celeste. Pronouns are she, her.
And welcome to our second spooky episode. This is a Celeste episode. Celeste really coming in hot with all of the literary openers.
I love it has an aura of mystery.
Ooh, because we still don't know who Bella is, right?
No.
All right.
This is an unsolved mystery.
Unsolved murders.
Unsolved murders.
It's kind of chaos today. Anyway.
It's been a month.
It has been a month indeed.
Lots of stress.
So much chaos.
But now we're here in this moment recording.
And as always, this episode is brought to you by our Patreon patrons. Should you choose to join their number, please visit the link below. Tiers start at $3 a month, and you get bonuses like Tourism Tales, where, speaking of the chaos of the month, I can't eat lasagna anymore because now it feels cursed. If you want to read about that, go to our Patreon.
Honestly, I'm curious. You can tell me after we finish recording.
Yeah. So, who did put Bella in the wych elm? I would love to know.
Question. How much do you know about Bella and the wych elm?
A moderate amount.
Okay. Then, let's get into it.
Okay.
So, first, the discovery. So, in 1943, Robert Hart, Thomas Willits, Bob Farmer, and Fred Payne were 4 teenage schoolboys who were in Hagley Wood, located within Worcestershire.
Okay, listeners don't know this, but we spent 15 minutes looking up YouTube videos trying to pronounce this correctly.
I'm sure that I'm still wrong. It's an American version of a British
So
place.
Basically, don't
English
at
place.
us, because English is a foul language. Anyway.
Well, it's also not just the name of a sauce, but is also the name of a county in the West Midlands in England. So this was in the midst of World War II, so maybe the boys were just trying to find birds' eggs for fun, or maybe they were trying to get food on the tables of their respective homes. Either way, none of them expected to find human remains on their foray into Hagley Wood. According to some sources, Bob initially mistook a part of the skull as a animal. He thought it was an animal skull at first.
Well, I mean, one does not go up into a tree anticipating to find a human on the inside.
That's true. But he, according to some sources, he actually picked it up, then realized that it was a human skull, with missing teeth and tufts of curly brown hair still attached. So there's actually a quote from Bob from later on in his life where he says, "There was a small patch of rotting flesh on the forehead with lank hair attached to it. The 2 front teeth were crooked."
I don't like that.
I don't like that either.
Do we know how big the space inside the wych elm was?
Enough to fit a body.
Oh my god. That's like a terrible pun in college. How much does a polar bear weigh? Enough to break the ice.
If you're asking for actual measurements, diameter, or whatever, I cannot tell you. But I have a picture of the tree, so you can see how big it is.
The very Wych Elm?
But it's looks like that.
Okay. It seems a lot more...
It doesn't look like a traditional tree.
Yeah.
It
has a lot more bush elements than I had initially been thinking.
Mm-hmm. It looks like if the Whomping Willow was in a bush form.
Yeah.
Lots of branches, lots of spikies. I understand why only Bob was climbing on that tree.
Yeah, it looks... I had always pictured it in my head as like...
a tree. Like an oak tree.
Yeah. I was literally thinking an oak tree, where it's like there happened to be a couple of branches low enough to hop up onto, but then like the inside had been rotting a little bit or something. But yeah, no, the spikies start way lower down on that one.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So the Wych Elm or the Scots Elm, it is the Ulmus glabra. Sorry, I'm just looking it up on Wikipedia. So this particular tree, because not all wych elms look like that, but this particular tree is very old and very large. So there was some flesh on it, but I had hair. Great.
Okay. Potentially dumb question. In taking the head off, has he thus decapitated the skeleton? Or was it mobile enough that she had probably already been decapitated?
It was, from what I could tell, it was basically all skeleton. So, I mean, like... I don't know if it was attached.
Okay. So we don't know if he was decapitating it or it just happened to not be.
Well, I also don't know if he actually picked it up, because that was just like one or two sources. And there's a lot of...
I mean, one of them is literally him, so...
Yeah, but he didn't say he picked it up. He just said that there was... Well, then again, if you're looking at it and you can
see what's on the forehead, you probably have it at least eye level. Anyway, this is a lot of speculation about whether or not she's already decapitated if we don't already know that she's decapitated. Anyway.
I feel like there's no tissue if you're like a skeleton, there's no tissue holding it together at that point. So if he picked it up, even if he decapitated it, must have not had an effort.
How fast does like cartilage disintegrate?
Well, I'll tell you how long she was in the tree.
Okay. How long was she in the tree?
18 months.
Okay. So...
18 months to the open air.
Yeah. At Forensic Sciences, Scientists and Adjacent of Dreary Midnight, how long does a body take to compose? Please let us know.
How long does a body take to compose when it's not buried?
Would love to know. Anyway, okay. So they're scrounging for eggs for fun and or food, and they find this body. Yes. What do?
They find a skull. So the boys immediately flee the scene, and they make a pact to never tell anyone about their trip into Hagley Woods. Because one, they were trespassing, but two, now they have happened upon like basically a crime scene.
Whoopsie doodle.
So they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know how they say 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead?
Yeah.
I guess 4 can keep a secret if 3 of them are dead?
Yeah.
Because that night, the youngest boy, who was Tommy Willits, he seemed to be particularly haunted by his friend's discovery because he told his father about the skull in the Wych Elm. So,
I mean, I also probably would do that at that age. How old was he?
It just said boys or teenagers. They didn't say the actual. So I'm going to guess that they were probably around 14.
Yeah, even at 14, I probably would have snitched, even unintentionally.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So if he was like 13, 14, I would have snitched.
Yeah. Anyway, so he tells his dad.
His parents then reported it to the police, who entered Hagley Woods the following day. Once there, officers found much more than a skull. They found an almost intact skeleton of a woman within the hollow tree. Her right hand was missing, apparently amputated. The hand bones would be found 13 paces away from the tree as investigations continued. Taffeta cloth had been shoved a long way down her throat, which led investigators to believe that the woman had died of suffocation. I also found a source that said that it was actually ripped from her skirt.
How can they tell that if the throat muscles are gone?
Maybe it was wrapped around the skeleton, around the... you know what I mean? That's fair.
But
it could have been like, maybe he didn't pick up the skull. Maybe this is evidence that he didn't pick it up. Because if she
If it's still in the mouth and like poking down a little bit, I can see why.
Uh-huh.
But from what I recall, most of the only like bony part is that top bit of your spine. Like that's the only truly bone part of your neck.
Maybe it was on her jaw.
Yeah. So maybe it was still in her mouth and like tucked down a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. That's what I have to assume. Because I don't have pictures of the
skull. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Some scraps of clothing and shoes, size 5.5, were found. She had on her left hand a rolled gold wedding ring, which is a thin strip of gold that was bonded or fused to the outside of a brass or copper base. Like that's what a gold, rolled gold wedding ring is. It's basically like a cheaper alternative to a solid gold ring.
Okay, so trying to ball on a budget.
Yeah. Her remains were taken to Professor James Webster, who was the local pathologist.
Okay. And
he discovered that the body was of a woman between 35 to 40 years of age.
Okay.
She stood around 5 feet tall, had distinctively irregular teeth, including a tooth pulled a year before her death. And she had given birth at least once. Okay.
But we don't know anything about the fate of the child.
No. We don't even know. No, we don't know anything about that because we don't know who she is.
Yeah.
She had been in the Wych Elm for about 18 months, placing her time of death around December 1941.
Okay. So this is like spring, summer of 43.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this is something that I found. I don't know if disturbing is the right word, but technically she would have had to be put in the tree while the body was still warm because rigor mortis would have prevented the positioning that she was found in.
I had heard that as well, which is like wild to think about.
It is wild to think about.
I don't know if you're gonna
like either freshly dead or alive.
Like still struggling alive or something.
Yeah.
So if I recall correctly, she's like semi-fetal position, correct?
It actually didn't say what position. All the sources didn't say what position she was in, but honestly, I would imagine semi-fetal position. Because if rigor mortis, she would be standing straight or something.
Yeah, because that's where rigor mortis
like bent a little.
Yeah. Rigor mortis, for those who don't know, is like the stiffening of the body after death, like the stiffening, especially of the muscles. Once the last breath is gone. But yeah, from what I understand, you can kind of manipulate the joints, but if your arm's straight when you're dead, you're not getting the elbow to go most places.
No.
Anyway.
Police searched exhaustively for who this mystery woman could have been. Because of her irregular and unique teeth pattern, her teeth were checked against dental records literally throughout the country. Like they were contacting dentists, and nothing came of it. They identified her shoes, tracking down the shoemakers in Northampton, and all but 6 owners of that model of shoe. 6 pairs were sold at a market stall in Dudley in the West Midlands, but the stall holders there kept no records. So I
feel like that's half of the reason you go to an outdoor market, and especially in the 40s.
So if she was, because it's literally the same place she was found, but if she was one of those 6 people, we have no way of knowing who she was.
Yeah. But then would they have been able to ask the person at the stall, like, hey, did you ever see someone about 5 foot with kind of wonky teeth buy a pair of shoes?
I mean, I have to assume there are lots of women who match that description. But yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Maybe they just never, like, even if they said yes, they wouldn't have known the name or anything of that woman, you know?
Unless both parties, both the seller and the purchaser are active parts of the community or something.
Yeah. Either way, it seems like nothing came of that. So maybe it's because Lisa wasn't there questioning.
Yes. Lisa, who has now binged most of Agatha Christie's catalog, would have absolutely found out. No, I'm just kind of a nosy asshat.
Aren't we all? Obviously, since this was during World War II, the Battle for Britain, where German planes flew over British cities at night bombing the locals, had left no shortage of missing people, and most are presumed buried under the rubble somewhere. So police ran a check of missing persons cases in the hopes of finding a potential match for the woman in the Wych Elm, but none of those people matched the lady. After about 6 months of searching, the case seemed to be in a limbo. This was clearly a murder, but also as a dead end, and with the World War in the forefront of everyone's mind, the tree murder riddle, as it was known at the time, was almost doomed to be forever forgotten. Until the graffiti appeared.
Dun dun dun.
Around Christmas of 1943, some pieces of mysterious graffiti were discovered, all written in chalk, all seemingly by the same hand. The first read, "Who put Lubella down the Wych Elm?" Then, etched on a wall, the words Hagley Wood Bella appeared. And then, found on a wall in Upper Dean Street, Birmingham, "Who put Bella down the Wych Elm, Hagley Wood?"
Who did? We all would love to know.
Police presumed the graffiti was always done at night since there were never witnesses to the act. And they also had a strong suspicion that whoever wrote these knew more information about the mysterious woman. After all, now there was a possible name. So the police rechecked their missing persons list looking specifically for a Lubella or a Bella. They investigated the kinds of people known for defacing walls and obelisks, but they couldn't get a break in the case. Since the 1970s, the phrase "Who put Bella in the Wych Elm" has been sporadically written on the Witchbury obelisk near the summit of Witchbury Hill in Hagley, Worcestershire. The current rendition of the graffiti on the obelisk was sprayed at some point in the 1990s. But despite the continual popularity of this cold case, no one has ever been able to come up with a definitive answer. So now, onto the theories as to who put Bella in the Wych Elm.
Would love to know.
So, there are many prevailing theories as to who Bella may have been and how she got in the tree, and none of them are definitive, but some are more believable than others.
All right, hit me with it.
Either way, so these are the most popular theories. I want to shout out Curious Archive for putting all of these theories into a nice little list for me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be mostly paraphrasing
All right.
that, and it's in our sources.
All right. Can I tell you what I've heard?
Tell me your theories, and then
Okay.
I can tell you the meat of it.
So I have heard that it is like cult adjacent. I've heard that she's some sort of like Nazi sympathizer and or spy that got parachuted in. I've heard some sort of mashup therein where she's a Nazi sympathizer who got on the wrong side of a cult. So those are the main ones that I've heard. And then I think I've heard just like generally somebody from out of town got tied up and got involved with a not great person and then got killed.
So, yes to all of those theories, and I'll go into more detail on them now.
Okay.
Yes. So the first theory is that Bella was a German singer and actress, Hedwig Clara Boller. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly because it has the little ... over the A. Bleh.
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 German
She's German.
students of Dreary Midnight, please write in.
Bauerle. Okay.
Yeah, I got nothing.
So, on February 1st, 1941, Joseph Jacobs parachuted into Cambridgeshire Field, suffering a broken ankle on impact. He was discovered by local farmers who contacted the police, and the police suspected Jacobs was a spy, so the case was passed over to the MI5. Now, among his belongings was the photograph of a woman, later identified as German singer and actress Clara
Clara B.
According to Jacobs, although I have to say Jacobs wasn't really considered a reliable source because he also said Clara was his lover and there was like no evidence to that. But
I mean, she had to have had some relations with somebody.
yes. So according to him, she was his lover and she was a secret agent who had parachuted into the Midlands around the same time or shortly after Joseph. Now,
but also she's dead, so she can't interject to say, no, he's actually kind of gross. Or
well,
whatever.
this was in February 1941, and she would have died in December of 1941.
So the
this
flying
is like
in is in February.
Yeah.
Okay. So like 3 months after she would have died, or
This is
10
like
months before.
10 months before.
Okay.
So apparently, like, he's like, yeah, that's my lover. She's going to fly. She was supposed to fly in and parachute after me, but she's probably not going to parachute after me now because I've been captured. So that's like a theory because that's something that he said.
Wait, so the spy is telling on his other spy girlfriend to MI5?
This is why I say he's not reliable.
Non-professional spy tip, don't snitch on your girlfriend.
Yeah. Okay, so there's another version of the story that says that Claire was already in the West Midlands performing in music halls and learning to hide her German accent. And she actually had a pretty convincing Birmingham accent. It was there that she was recruited by Nazi Germany. And allegedly, according to this story, Joseph and Clara never actually made contact. But I don't think that makes sense because he had a picture of her. Yeah. So, I mean, unless he was just weird.
Was it confirmed that there was a touring actress?
Oh, she existed. Yeah.
So I can see a universe in which, like how we had the magazines and that came with the posters of certain celebrities in like the 90s and aughts. I can see an equivalent of that in the 40s. I don't know if that was a thing, but I can understand.
I don't know how
universe.
famous she was.
Yeah, that is the thing. I don't know if she would have gotten to local news article level, but the flip side is if that's not obviously like a magazine or newspaper clipping, then probably she knew him to invest in getting a nice photo done.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay,
so details on how she would have actually ended up in the Wych Elm, though.
This actress named, remind me of her name?
Clara.
Oh, it's Clara B.
Clara B.
Okay.
Basically, people don't really think about how she ended up there. They just... Like, the theory is that she was in the area, and then somehow spy shenanigans happened, and then she ended up in the Wych Elm.
Okay. So, yes, parachute in this scenario, or no parachute in this scenario?
I guess it depends on which scenario. If you're going by the Jacobs version, then yes, parachute. If you're going by the fact that she was already there without parachute. Jacobs, then no parachute.
Okay.
But either way, spy shenanigans
parachute
happened.
Yeah.
But really, the connection between Bella and Clara would have come... mostly because after 1941, she basically disappeared from all media. She disappeared from films and recordings. So, like, not that they had scrubbed her clean, but more like she stopped acting after that.
Oh, yeah.
And so people were like, oh, it's because she died.
But she could have also...
Retired.
Gone on hiatus for pregnancy, maternity leave.
And then it's also the fact that her name sounds like Clarabella or Bella. But sorry to burst your bubble.
Boo.
All of this theory was like totally put to rest because her actual death registration was located. She died in 16th December 1942 in Berlin, and her cause of death was a lung infection due to veronal poisoning.
What poisoning?
Veronal was a popular sleeping aid during the 1900s.
Oh, so she
overdosed on it. We don't know if it was a suicide or if it was an accident or if it was a murder.
But how dare you burst my favorite theory with facts and logic? How dare you?
The fun thing about this sleeping aid that I found out is that it technically worked, but it worked and then you would get a tolerance to it. So then you'd have to keep like upping the dosage.
Yeah.
So a lot of people actually died from this sleeping aid, including apparently Clara, because she has an actual death certificate. So, boo, she was not Bella.
Boo, hiss. So she's confirmed dead on a different part of the continent a year after.
She was confirmed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's another theory. Theory number 2.
Okay.
Well, this is technically theory number 2/3/4, but these are all such small theories that I just lumped them all together.
Okay.
So there's a theory that Bella was an unknown sex worker. In 1944, a local sex worker contacted the Birmingham police to report the disappearance of another sex worker named Lou Bella, who had vanished 3 years prior. And remember, the first
The first one says
graffiti
who
said
put Lubella.
who put Lubella down the Wych
Okay.
Elm. So, it was thought that Lubella had been lured into Hagley Wood, where she was mysteriously murdered by an unknown person.
Okay.
But there was no actual, there was nothing else leading to that. They couldn't really identify her as Lubella.
Okay. But I feel like
that's a pretty solid theory.
I mean, just because of the opinions of sex work at the time requires a degree of anonymity, both for the people selling the sex and the people buying the sex, but that also, anecdotally, from what I understand, leads to a lot of potential for violence.
I also, though, wonder if she would have her wedding ring on. Like, if she was married, would she be wearing it during her shifts?
It doesn't necessarily have to be a wedding ring.
That's true.
Yeah. I am listening to a book now about someone who was like, it's in the early to mid 20s when Franklin Roosevelt is governor of New York. And she's like, she makes her income with blackmail, extortion, and sex work. But as part of her sex work, she works for like a high-end place where someone just needs, like, literally escorting in the, like, you just need someone to look hot and elegant for a few hours. She, as part of that element of the work, was gifted like this really, really fancy ring and this really nice coat and all of these things. But it works with her work.
Yeah.
So it could have been something like that.
There's also the theory that apparently locals in Hagley Wood claimed that the Romani people had been camping in the woods during 1941 and murdered Bella. There's a theory that Bella herself was Romani and was killed by her own people.
Are you telling me it was racism all along?
This theory is basically just racism. There was no actual evidence to any of this. This was just locals being like, you know what? I don't like those folks. Maybe they killed her. This is another theory.
Official Dreary Midnight Stints being racism. Oh my god.
We're keeping that one in. Being racism.
Being
bad,
racism
folks.
is bad. Being racist is also bad. Don't discriminate, maybe. That's the official Dreary Midnight Stints.
Official Dreary Midnight Stance is if somebody is dead or missing, don't just be like, this group of people that I don't like obviously is behind it.
Or at least don't jump to that first conclusion, unless this individual in particular was beefing with a member of that community. Then maybe maybe it's that person and not the entire community.
Exactly. And then another short theory. This one I think is really sad. This was put forth by the police. That Bella was a refugee from the Blitz. So during the Second World War, when the Germans were launching the bombing campaign for, from the skies of the UK, basically the theory suggests that while Bella was living in Birmingham, she hid in Hagley Wood during one of the air raids, since this was a known location for people to shelter from attack.
Okay.
And the reason that I think that's really sad is because that means that she was scared, went into the hollow tree, and then couldn't get out.
Oh no. But also I feel like that's one of the more plausible ones, except for the whole
plausible.
Except for the fabric in the mouth.
The fabric in the mouth.
Yeah. I don't know.
But none of these theories led police to further evidence, so all of them are pretty much a dead end. Then there is the theory that Bella is a spy, or was a spy. So this theory is a little bit messy, but it's popular one. So here we go. In 1953, journalist Wilfred Byford Jones revisited the still unsolved murder while writing under the pen named Quaster for the Express and Star newspaper.
So 10 years after Bella's death.
Yes. Byford Jones received numerous letters in response to his article, including one from a woman who went by Anna of Claverley, and her letter began with this message. Finish your articles, re. the Wych Elm crime by all means. They are interesting to your readers, but you will never solve the mystery. The one person who could give the answer is now beyond the jurisdiction of the earthly courts.
Dun dun dun.
So,
or you, Anna, who is making all these accusations, could say something about it. It sounds like, if you know all of this shit.
Well, Anna, in this letter, then hinted that she knew the identity of Bella's killer and that the individual died insane, quote, quote, in 1942. So she said that Bella was Dutch and illegally in England as of 1941. And it was clear from her letter that Anna was either privy to unknown details or she was making things up for attention.
The 50-50 when you're 10 years old. Yeah.
Either way, the police persuaded her to meet with them in person. So, according to Anna, who was later identified as Una Mossop, her ex-husband, Jack Mossop, worked among a group of pro-German conspirators who had been siphoning information about munitions and aircraft factories to Germany. So, she claimed that Bella was also a spy operating the same area and that Jack, who was Anna's ex-husband, was present when Bella's body was put in the Wych Elm. She also mentioned another Dutch citizen named Van Ralt in connection with Bella's murder. And allegedly, Bella was murdered due to her extensive knowledge of the pro-German spy ring, and her body was hidden to cover the trail of the killers. Another version of Anna's story says, yeah, I know, she has another version of her own story, says that her husband and Van Ralt were drinking in a local pub with Bella, and she passed out, and they put her body in their car, and they drove to Hagley Wood, and they put her in the body to, like, teach her a lesson, so that when she woke up, she'd be freaked out, and she wouldn't get drunk anymore.
That seems like a weird lesson.
I know.
Or at least a weird way to teach you that lesson. Like,
Also,
let's give you some extra trauma.
Once again, we don't know how the taffeta got in her mouth.
Yeah.
If that was the case.
Yeah.
There was a third similar version to Anna's story. This is why she's unreliable.
Yeah.
That basically her ex-husband Jack helped hide Bella's body after Van Ralt accidentally killed her in an altercation in a pub. And that Jack was then haunted by dreams of a skull in a tree and deeply disturbed by the incident. And by the time Bella's body was located, Jack Mossop had already died in St. George's Hospital in Stafford following a mental breakdown. So Anna's claims were investigated by both MI5 and the police, but no arrests or new developments arose. And it's unclear how seriously her story was taken, since she didn't come forward until 12 years after the body was discovered, very publicly discovered, and her husband had already passed away by then.
Yeah.
So to me, it sounds like she just wanted attention.
Yeah. I mean...
Especially because she had 3 different versions of her own story.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't like that one mostly because it's so long after and it's so different from each internally. The fact pattern is so different. Like, I can understand because human memory is weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember things perfectly from 10 years ago, but I can remember the gist of things. And sure, my order might not quite be the correct order, but I can remember this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and maybe I don't know.
Also,
it's the order and not necessarily the actual facts, I feel like.
She's also saying this about someone who's already dead.
Yeah.
So he can't
2
even
people
say
who are already
anything.
dead. Yeah.
So...
Yeah. How long ago had he died before Anna said anything?
He had died in 42 she died, Bella died in 41, he died in 42, and then she was discovered in 43.
And
but
Anna
didn't say anything until 53.
So I could
when
understand...
a random journalist was doing an article.
Yeah. The main argument I could have made for the delay is if Jack had died in 53. And, like, she's not worried about him coming after her for saying anything anymore.
But she was also divorced by the time, because it's not like because it was her ex-husband.
True, but
so,
I don't know. I feel like the threat of violence only really abates when the person is physically gone.
True. But he had been dead for 11, 12 years.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so this is the last theory.
Is this the cult one?
Well, it's not necessarily a cult. Well, yes.
Okay.
It's the theory that Bella was killed by witches.
Okay.
A coven of local witches.
Okay.
So, you remember how her hand...
What, right hand taken off and found 13 paces out?
Yeah. Okay. According to Margaret Alice Murray, who was a prestigious researcher in folklore and the quote-unquote grandmother of Wicca, she had a theory that the removal of Bella's hand and the separation from the body was reminiscent of the creation of a hand of glory. Do you remember that we talked about the hand of glory before in my superstition? Okay, so for those who didn't listen to the last superstition episodes or who just needs a refresher, a hand of glory is an old European belief that involves the removal of a hanged criminal's hand during a lunar eclipse. It basically, it's a luck charm that basically protects you when you are yourself doing crimes. I have more information on it in the superstition episode where we talk about rabbit's feet.
Yeah.
So basically the theory is that Bella was targeted for crimes committed against a local coven of witches, and she was murdered, and then her hand was cut off in order to make a hand of glory.
Okay.
Yes. Unfortunately, this theory is really far-fetched. I don't know if they made her... If they were going to make a hand of glory, why would they just leave it there?
Yeah.
Instead of...
Usually, if you want to do all crime stuff, you don't get the hand of glory crime benefit if you leave it.
Exactly.
There. Anyway.
Also, I don't know if this was like she was part of the coven and then they killed her because she did some crime against the coven, or if they just killed her but then she's not a criminal, or maybe she was, I don't know. But it's supposed to be a criminal's hand.
Okay.
But anyway, the occult theory was actually initially taken seriously by the police, and this is because around the same time, the body of a local man named Charles Walton was found in nearby Lower Quinton. So he was found pinned to the ground with his own pitchfork with a cross carved into his chest.
Oh my God.
So the police, Professor Murray proposed a link between the cases of Bella and Charles, and Scotland Yard began to pursue this as a potential lead. However, the police came to the conclusion that the separation of the hand was probably due to animals and not a coven.
Okay.
There was also no evidence of a coven operating in the Hagley Wood area at the time of the murder nor prior.
Okay.
So, those are all the main theories for Bella.
Okay.
In 2018, speculation of the identity of Bella resurfaced when British anthropologist Caroline Wilkinson created a facial reconstruction of Bella's physical features based on photographs of her skull. Wilkinson had also made a facial reconstruction of King Richard III when his remains were uncovered in a car park in 2012.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I remember that, yeah.
As of then, no new leads have come up. We're still no closer to the truth.
Do you have the photo of the reconstruction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she looks like an average 30 to 40-year-old woman.
Yeah, no, she looks like, a working class ma who has some bills and some stressors and is working on it.
Yeah. But yeah, she has facial reconstruction of the possible identity or face of Bella, but we still don't know who she is. We still don't know her name or how she got there. The mystery of this unknown woman has solidified itself in West Midlands folklore, with the story kept alive thanks to the strange graffiti that constantly asks, who put Bella in the Wych Elm?
Dun, dun, dun.
Also, if you have your own theories,
write them in.
There was like a whole Reddit thread of people just talking about Bella and the Wych Elm.
Yeah.
And their own theories. And some of them are these, and some of them are other like little ones, internet sleuths and all that.
All right. So if you have a theory you would like to propose, send us an email, drearymidnightpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to suggest topics or sources or gentle corrections, that is the best place to do that as well.
Also, if you want to hear Lisa's lasagna story.
The lasagna story is wild. Follow us on Patreon.
Please.
Patreon.com/drearymidnight. Help me finance therapy so I can finally eat my favorite food again.
I didn't know lasagna was your favorite.
It's not like my favorite, but it is up there enough that my week was thrown off.
Your dinner plans had to change.
Yeah. support us on Patreon, patreon.com/drearymidnight. It will cost you $3 just a month just to get that story. And you could just give us the $3 and then I'll tell it to you. I don't know.
Just come in person. Knock on our door.
And then hand me $3. Actually, hand me $5 because then I'm going to also have to finance therapy about how you found my apartment. And listen, I have a wedding to pay for. Anyway, again, best place to do that is patreon.com/drearymidnight. If you want to follow us on the socials, we are on Instagram at drearymidnightpod. If there is a message or a story reply, that is probably me. If there is a major post, that is probably Celeste. And with all of that said, don't snitch on your spy girlfriend, especially to MI5. Yeah. And don't cut people's hands off. And
don't do that.
Don't be racism.
Don't be racism.
And safe travels home on this dreary midnight. Good night.
Good night.